Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the next episode of the Real Collective Podcast. Here today, as always, with our friend and esteemed co-host, Kyle Miller. I am Sean Tasse, your other co-host.
Did I get upgraded?
Yeah, I think you did, man. I think
It's getting serious now.
it is. Watch out, world. So if you guys are liking what you're seeing, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who you think might be interested in today's topic, which is conditions that are typical in an agreement of purchase and sale. We're going to talk about the most two prominent conditions that we're seeing, one being finance, the other being a home inspection condition, and how all of that plays out from a legal and mortgage perspective. So before we jump in, Kyle, how are you doing? You're about to jump on a jet, you international jet setter, winner of the award, going to White Lotus it up in Italy.
Yeah, White Lotus, exactly. Yeah, I get to go to Italy. It's gonna be cool. I'm super excited about it. Bummed that Air Canada's Air Canada, and we lost the day because who knows what happened. But they're just like, yeah, you can't go now for that day. But that's a problem that a lot of other people don't have. So I'll take it. It'll be all right. Yeah, gonna be good. Gonna be cool.
That's going to be a lot of fun. You can I don't know what the theme song is for White Lotus, but I feel like if you just have it playing in the background on your phone, that's it'll hit with
I don't even. I'm gonna have to go find it. I'm like, I don't know. Now I gotta go find it. Let's see.
It'll be good. So we're going to talk a little bit today about conditions that are typical of an offer. For the last, 3-4 years, we're seeing a lot of offers going through without conditions. Like people would forego their home inspection. People would forego adding their finance condition to their offer because that's what they needed to do to beat out the 17 other people who wanted to buy the same property that they wanted to buy. Now, there aren't 17 other people. You've got 17 showings and maybe one person who's going to submit an offer, and that person will give you an offer. If you're a seller, they'll give you an offer that has a financing clause, that has a home inspection clause. If it's a condo, it's got a status certificate review clause. We'll skip that one over and save it for another time. But we figured in the first half, we could talk about your financing clause, how it's written, what it means, what the potential pitfalls are. So from a real estate legal perspective, when you submit an offer that has a financing clause, that clause normally says that you have X number of days, and it's usually somewhere between 5 and 7. Sometimes they're asking for 2 weeks, 5 to 7 days, normally a week, to review the financing for that property. Typically, a home buyer has done their pre-approval, but that property itself has not been approved. And that really is what the bank is looking to do. Sometimes the buyer has not been pre-approved. And in those cases, you've got to do everything all at once, which is a little bit harder to do. But the way the clause is written is for the benefit of the buyer. It says the buyer needs to, I'm going just off the top here, I don't have this in front of me. The buyer, needs 5 days or whatever it is to ensure that they're able to put their mortgage together at a rate and terms that are acceptable to them in their sole and absolute discretion. That's essentially the meat of it, and then you've got time to fulfill that condition or to waive that condition, and there's different benefits and drawbacks to either fulfilling the condition or waiving the condition, right? From a legal point of view, if you fulfill the condition, you say, yeah, I went and I talked to someone, they figured me out, they put my money together, I'm good. If you either remove or waive the condition, it says, I don't need this condition anymore.
Oh,
whether or not.
Okay, I actually thought it was the same thing. I didn't think, quite honestly, I just like, we have that deadline, we run by that deadline. Terminology wise, I'm like, waive, fulfill, I don't care. You're removing that condition, so we're moving forward.
Yeah,
but there's a difference between waiving and fulfilling.
Yeah. So if you fulfill your condition, it says, yes, I did the thing. I went to speak with the mortgage guy. So I went to talk to Kyle. Kyle said, yeah, you're good. The house is good. You're good. If you waive it or if you remove it, it's like it was never there in the first place. It's like you didn't even put a finance condition.
Okay.
If you right, and that has potential legal ramifications down the line. If you waive it, it says, look, I put this condition in, I didn't talk to anybody, I didn't actually fulfill this, but I'm good. I'm paying the whole thing cash. I don't actually need this condition. So I didn't fulfill the condition. I just don't need it anymore. So
Okay,
there's
so it
three,
depends on how you're coming. Depends on how you're coming at it
yeah.
towards the
And
towards that time. Okay.
and if down the road the transaction does not complete, depending on how you fulfilled, waived, or removed that condition, it might have an impact on you as the buyer with regards to what your liability is down the road. So that's a whole other legal conversation to have, but that's the meat of it, right? And then when you see an offer come by your desk, you're like, hey,
Yeah.
Sean, can you please send me the agreement of purchase and sale as well as the listing with all of the documents, information, tax information, all that kind of stuff in it. And when you get that and you get the clause, you might see those clauses sometimes written in different ways. Sometimes you can see them written where it says, I will buy this house as long as I can get this rate. I can buy, and those exist, and real estate agents rarely use them, but they are pre-printed clauses that you might see come across your desk. And maybe it's been a long time. Sometimes there is a condition that says, hey, I'm going to get a mortgage on it, but I also want you, the seller, to give me a mortgage for the difference, a VTB, a vendor take back mortgage, where the vendor is holding a mortgage either in second. I think it's always got to be in second position, right? They're never going to be in first.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on how they do it. If there's another lender involved, almost guaranteed that they're going to want to be in first place. Have the VTB go in second. But that's a lot of people think like, oh well, like the seller's doing this, so it's automatically okay. It's not necessarily okay. There's a lot of other rules that come into play because, particularly places like the big banks, I don't know that I've ever even heard of them allowing that in most cases. The second step becomes there's loan to value limits that lenders will allow themselves to do. So an alternative lender like legally can't allow themselves to go past 80% of the value, have anything registered, like knowingly, that's key, knowingly registered more than 80% of the value, right? So you got $1 million home and you can get a first mortgage for 500 grand and the vendor is going to do a $400,000 vendor take back. Well, that's 90% loan to value. No alternative lender will legally be allowed to know that that's happening. So
Right.
they could do it up to 800, but they wouldn't. But you still have to qualify. There has to be terms. There has to be conditions. You can't just do it. It's free because it's my uncle. Like you can't do that, right? It's like it has to be. It has to be a terms and agreement, and it's got to be written. We need to see the payments because it's got to be factored in. It's not, again, like we talked about, I think an episode or two ago. It's not the U.S. way of just like mortgages, title change. Yeah, it's not like that. We're tight on that shit. So we don't make it easy.
Yeah.
But it's doable. It's doable. You don't see it a lot. And the people that not benefit, but so you get what a vendor take back is. It's really just the seller foregoing some of their cash today. Like you think of it, to keep it simple. The seller owes nothing on their house, $1 million house, right? Need a vendor take back for, just to keep it simple again, 200 grand, right? They're gonna get a mortgage, money to them at the lawyers of 800, and they're gonna write a piece of paper that says you still owe me 200 more, right? Like that's how it's gonna, or it wouldn't work like that. It would be 600,000. But anyway, they write that piece of paper that says, hey, you guys still owe me this, and you pay me this per month, rah rah rah, and then here's all the terms and conditions, how it gets paid out, automatic withdrawal or checks or whatever. It all goes there. So they're foregoing that money today for later.
And the idea being that a vendor might want it, if it helps a buyer qualify. But the thing is, if the buyer can't qualify through traditional means, what's going to make them qualify through the vendor? The vendor offering either a lower rate.
It's sometimes, lots of times where I've seen vendor takebacks is for down payment, like some element of down payment. Like we can only, like, the lender A, the bank is only going to give us whatever, 500 grand because
Yeah.
of, for whatever reason,
Sure.
right? But to make this work, we need to get to 600 grand. So
Right.
we're short that 100 grand, right?
Right.
Okay, vendor comes in and says, yeah, well, I'll give you that 100 grand as a vendor take back mortgage. You've got the other down payment,
Yeah.
right? But we're short this 100. I'll write you, you will write an agreement, a mortgage that you owe me that 100. You're going to pay me like this. You're going to do this. And that's that. And as long as it works with the first lender, then they'll
Yeah.
be like, okay, and that's that. And people say, well, why would that happen? Lots of times, a lot of lenders just deal, I don't say just, but their focus is less, and this is more in the private space.
Yeah.
It's less on you as the borrower, but still there, and more on the property and their risk tolerance.
Right.
So, something like big acreage would be a perfect example, right? There's value to 100 acres, but the vast majority of banks only ever evaluate the house and 5.
Yeah.
So a place that's priced on 100 acres, because there's a value to that 100,
Yeah.
is very, very hard to appraise at that purchase price when the bank's only going to allow it to be appraised on the house plus 5,
Yeah.
right? So the seller might come in and say, okay, look, where's our gap? How far off are we? I want the money, but I don't need it today. And if this is going to keep happening, because it will, right? Once we establish a problem, it can be difficult to fix unless somebody comes in with like a ton of cash. So now there's your money. I'll forego the 100 or 200 grand today. I'll take the other amount that I'm good with. You'll pay me. And when we get to a certain point, we'll figure out our exit strategy.
And in the
So,
and in the meantime, the seller, the vendor, is making interest on that money that they're lending, right? So there's a
oh yeah,
benefit.
you're the bank. They're
Yeah.
the bank. So they just like a lot of really good lawyers, have agreements that they've drawn up in the past and know how to administer these. And there you go, right? And go collect 12 post-dated checks at 5 or 6%, and you can print out an amortization schedule, and boom. And actually, from a security standpoint, it's interesting because that vendor take back person has an interest in their own house that they just sold. And if
Yes.
something goes sideways, again, different conversation, but the second mortgage holder can step in first and be like, I'm taking this whole thing back. So they get control of their own property again if
Yeah.
if stuff goes sideways. So it's interesting. It's
I like
interesting.
that. So now before we shift gears into the second half and talk a little bit about the inspection condition, what have you seen as pitfalls for some people, let's say, for example, who are choosing to not put a finance condition in their offer?
I think, quite honestly, and I look at both sides of it, that's a ballsy move on both accounts, be it
Yes.
from the seller and the buyer, because a seller's from the buying side, what you're saying is there's no way that this can go sideways, right?
Yeah.
The 100%. The problem is the way our system is set up is things are checked and rechecked again. And there's a clause in every mortgage that says if the bank finds out something's changed, it doesn't matter when in the process, right? They don't have to fund this deal, right? So, case in point, I had a client a few weeks ago who was sent my way. He was sitting at one of the big 6 banks. I didn't do this deal at the start. It came to me from the lawyer because the bank called the lawyer and said, we found out this guy bought a new car and his payments make the ratios out of whack. We're not funding this deal. We're done. And he's like, but I didn't know I couldn't buy a car. Right? Whatever. That's a different story. But that was it. So, as I say, in my new shirts being printed, cars kill deals, right? That's the thing. They found out later in the process, they're not doing the deal anymore. They walked away. Now, someone's going to say, yeah, but Kyle, you or that bank said he was approved. He was, as long as he stayed in that box. He went outside the box and they found out. I've had people who have quit their jobs. They're like, yep, I'm quit. I got my house now. It's a little far from work though. I quit. They're like, but you need a job. No, I already have the mortgage. Do you have the keys? No, then you don't have the mortgage, right? The disappointing part is that it really is like they can pull the pin right before closing. So if we don't give them a reason to, they probably won't. So understand that. But if you give them a reason and they think they can't and they think they need to, they will. And that's the pitfall for the buyer. But right away, the seller goes, oh, well, if this guy's got no condition, I say, guys, but these people have no conditions, it's got to be guaranteed. Nope, it's not. So by you not allowing the process to make sure it's verified and do all the due diligence, right? And let that, it's less today, but if you think about the COVID times when everybody was a little crazy, right? There's a lot of deals that didn't close. We may not hear about it, but there's a lot of deals that didn't close because people weren't allowed to do their due diligence and didn't have time to get pre-approvals. Like literally just didn't have time or needed extra time.
And nobody cared because they turned around and they sold the house for more money than they had originally, right? So it was just like, well, whatever. You don't close, that's fine.
This became annoying, not detrimental. Right.
Whereas
but now with things sitting, it's way tougher. And who's stuck? And as a seller, I think you got to say, who's stuck holding the bag on this? Like, what if you have no place to, if you have to buy another house and this falls through, guess what? You just became that person.
Yeah.
Because you have to close that other deal now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's this infinite set of dominoes that could happen. There's always never that much, but I wouldn't say never. But it could be a lot. It could be nothing. But why do you want to risk that? What's that 5 days going to do to your life to risk that amount of crap and shit that you'd have to deal with?
I'll tell you what it is. It's when you're selling a house, you've sold your house, right? When you're selling a house, the anxiety that you go through of like, oh my God, is this ever going to happen? Every day is like a new minefield, right? It's like,
True.
I get a front row seat, right? To the anxieties that people go through when they're selling their house. So I get it. I understand like, hey, you're looking at this offer and it's unconditional. Most agents are going to be saying, hey, take the unconditional offer. It's good. They have to close. Right. So, right. It's hard.
And that part's the part I struggle with because they're like, well, they have to close. Guys, no, they don't. No, they don't. They could just say, you know what? Sorry, right? $500,000 house. You're going to put a minimum down payment of 25 grand, right? I'm not saying that's peanuts. And I'm not saying the people buying just have that to throw away, right? But if push comes to shove, 25 grand, they walk away, right? That is now your problem. You have to fight that. You have to chase them for money. You have to figure out your own stuff. And they're like, well, I'll sue you. I don't know if you've been through any part of the legal process recently, but that's going to be a solid couple years before you get anything done.
All you get, and we went through this recently, all you get is the threat of suing them and then figuring out a settlement amount, which is typically not good enough. So yeah, there is still risk involved, even with an offer that is not conditional on finance. So get a bigger deposit, I guess is the solution.
If I do have an unpopular opinion,
do it.
And I think I'll say that is I actually like how the Quebec Real Estate Board does their stuff. I actually think it's very, very good. So for people that don't know, right, if you look at the parallels here in Ontario, someone who says I'm with no conditions, let's rock and roll, they don't have to have anything done. You're taking their word for it. So they can come. COVID, this happened. They came to me after they already bought and said, man, I hope this works. And it's part of my job to try to figure that part out. So if they're, and lots of times through COVID, actually, I was really good. Nothing went sideways with my clients. So we were okay. But and you can fulfill those conditions and everything you have to do. Like literally, I've had it happen on the last day. I'm sending something to the lender because something got missed or changed or something. Right? We try not to do this, and this isn't like every day, but it happens. And we can do that and still close the deal. In Quebec, you've got a 10-day window, and everything has to be done within that 10 days. There is no, oh, we'll sell the house in a month from now. No. Your house is sold, firm sale agreement. We'll do a bridge, but it's sold. We're not waiting for you to sell, and I hope this goes through. The lender has checked everything, and even the real estate agents, they won't take a letter from me that says we're broker complete. And they know that. The banks know that. The banks have to produce a letter that says we are 100% complete. It is now in the hands of the notary to finish this deal up.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's great. It can be stressful and it's tough, and you have to be super prepared. But I think it's the best. It's one of the safest places to do real estate from that standpoint, I would think.
Yeah, and I think we're a little long in the first half here, so we might not
Sorry.
get. That's okay. Don't apologize. I worry that as things change in Ontario, it's always like, oh well, how can a buyer agent put their client in a better situation, and that's how we got to this place, right? So anyways, let's take a pause here, put a pin in it, and come back to it maybe later on. But in the second half, we're going to talk a little bit about the inspection condition and what impacts that might have on the finance for the property that you find in the inspection condition. So like, subscribe, share this with someone, download us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you'd like to schedule an appointment with Kyle or I, you can do so in the Calendly links below. We'll catch you on the flip side.
This episode of the Real Collective podcast is brought to you by Real Collective. Real Collective brings together best-in-class real estate agents and collective experts in the field to deliver the best possible service to our clients. We govern ourselves with honesty, open-mindedness, and compassion. With diverse skill sets, our agents are able to better serve a wide array of clients, including first-time buyers, first-time sellers, transferees, estate sales, investors, and rural, vacation, and luxury properties. Authenticity and transparency are pillars of our process, which allows us to put our clients at the center of everything we do. Our years of experience and knowledge allow us to deliver prestigious service and optimal results. If you are interested in buying or selling your home, contact us today at realcollective.ca.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of the Real Collective podcast. Let's just jump right into it. We won't do any of the preamble because we're running. Inspection condition. Can you put it in? Can you not put it in? Every inspector will tell you you're silly to not. Some agents will tell you, hey, the inspector takes the panel off and looks in the attic, which is over and above what a really top quality agent will do. Is it really worth that clause? A lot of agents were saying during the pandemic, hey, you know what? If you want to get this house, roll the dice that there's nothing wrong with the house. If there is, it's on you. That's it. That was the advice that people were giving. Good, bad, I'm not making a value judgment on it. Actually, I will. You should always get a home inspection for your house. How's that?
I was gonna say, like, what's the why? Like, why would I don't understand that? That just screams to me you're hiding something.
Well, so if the buyer looks through the house and says, look, I'm comfortable with this, I'm okay with it, I don't mind, you know what, I don't think they're hiding anything from me. It doesn't seem like these are the type of people, based on how their house looks and whatever, that they're the type of people who are trying to hide something from me. I'll take the risk. I'll roll the dice. Scarier with well or septic, scarier with older houses, right? And again, as an agent who's been doing it for a while, I knew nothing about houses when I got into this career. I've been on so many different home inspections with so many different inspectors that I can start picking houses apart. That's what I do, right? Like when we go from house to house, I'm like, I don't like this, I don't like this, watch out for this, watch out for this. Obviously, I don't look in the attic, I don't pull the panel off. I'm not a plumbing expert, I'm not an electrical expert, all of that sort of thing, right? My advice is never to submit an offer without a home inspection condition, but I've been a part of people who have, plenty of times. If you are doing a full gut job for the property, there's going to be problems that you find as you gut the property. Do you need an inspection, right? The answer is always yes, you should be getting an inspection. Let's start there, right? But again, from a legal point of view, there is a pre-printed clause that says, hey, I had a right to do an inspection and I chose not to. That's always pre-printed in the agreement of purchase and sale. And if you do that, and there's a problem with the house that wasn't disclosed, some sort of, we've talked about defects, latent and patent defects. There's a problem that wasn't disclosed, that even though there's no inspection condition, that still does shift over a responsibility from the buyer to the seller if you don't do an inspection. So there's a lot of nuance to it. And again, you know, take the advice of your lawyer. If we are submitting an offer that doesn't have an inspection condition, we have our sellers sign what's called a Form 127, and our old broker of record called it the stupid buyer form.
Rare.
I choose to not put a you know, something to protect me in here. You're an idiot. Sign this form. Go ahead. Right. So, and we still do it.
But my dad knows houses. He's coming.
Yeah. Or my uncle or whatever. One of the guys on our team, he did a home inspection at a property, and you know, the dad came as the inspector, and they were like fiddling with the thermostat, right? He's like, oh, I need to turn up the thermostat so I can hear the furnace turn on when I turn on the thermostat. And it was at like, I don't know, 19, and he turned it to 20. He's like, see, it's not turning on. And he's like, well, how about you just like go and press it to like 26 instead of just like going up 1 degree? So he did that, and it turned on. And it's just like, what are you doing here? Like, anyways, it was.
Oh, it's awesome.
So you know, from a legal perspective, what's written in the agreement of purchase and sale is that the buyer is allowed to get their own home inspection, to bring their own inspector at their own cost, and in their sole and absolute discretion, that the house, you know, that they've reviewed the inspection report and that they're satisfied with it in their sole and absolute discretion. So those words, sole and absolute discretion, give them the ability to walk away from the deal if they didn't like the way that, I don't know, the grading or the caulking or the fact that these things were installed in this way, which the inspector says, actually, you know, you need to install them in this way, or the smoke detectors are no longer, you know, valid. Oh, and frozen. Oh, that's exciting. So
yeah, this is fun.
I'll just keep going until maybe you come back. This is great. You've got a good look on your face though, so it's all good.
Very intrigued. You can hear me though.
Yeah. That's good. We can hear you. It's a podcast after all. Maybe you'll
Very true.
So yeah, what happens is, what we've written in some cases is, hey, if there is a problem with the house, the seller has the right to remedy that problem. Okay, you don't just get sole and absolute discretion to walk away from this deal. If you want to buy it, you can buy it. If you don't want to buy it, then, or if you don't like what you find, give us a chance to fix it before you walk away, right? So in terms of the
and that's sorry, and that's and the thing too is that the inspection, and depending on how things are written, so between everything, right? The MLS puts some information out there, and the lender sees that information, and they can ask questions based on that, right? So it's an example of why I think, you know, while I tell agents, I'm like, although that's a marketing strategy to have like the handyman special, right? And if you're calling all contractors, right, that's a flag right away for a lender to say, let me see the inspection, right? Let me see the inspection. Well, we didn't have an inspection. Well, you're going to go get one, because we want to know what we're investing in. Right. And your opinion, your dad's opinion, your thought of, you know, getting it, you know, waiving the inspection doesn't play well with us. So we're going to force you to go get one. So we've seen that happen for sure, depending on how things are written and how things go. So it's an interesting, it's people trying to, you know, pull the wool over lenders' eyes for their own benefit. It works, but it doesn't work a lot.
I mean, I'll just come out and say it. I have changed what it says on an MLS when we're going to market versus when we're conditionally sold, because I know exactly that, because I did want investors to come and buy this house. And I didn't want to raise a red flag when it was time for someone to take that MLS sheet to their, to their bank, because I didn't want it to be the reason that the deal fell apart, but I wanted it to be a good piece for marketing. So, I mean, there's,
and I think that's where the communication comes in, right? And okay, you can see this house,
yeah,
right? You can see this house. You know that there's something there that should be looked at. So get the inspection, right? And the marketing piece I get too, but that's also where you guys work a little harder, make a few more phone calls, and position it properly, right? So
the other one that I've seen just before, and we're gonna jump off here real quick, but the other piece that I've seen is we do the home inspection, and then there's an amendment that comes through, and the amendment says, hey, look, we'll go ahead with the purchase of the house as long as you, the seller, fix the foundation. Or fix,
and that's
right.
So I just had one of those. I had a client who was purchasing, they less than 20% down, and basically just came back with, hey, you need to fix this and this well and this thing and this thing. And basically at that point the seller's like, well, yeah, because if we try to sell this house to anybody else, because quote unquote your conditions are too much, this is all now out in the open. And everybody's going to know this, and it's not getting any better. So let's just work with these people and rock and roll.
Yeah.
Right. And the seller and the buyer made some concessions too. They replaced something else instead of having them eat up every cost on it, because they felt it was fair to do that. So it can all be worked on for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, listen, we spent a lot of time in the first half talking about the finance piece of it. We spent a little bit of time talking about the inspection. There's a whole other podcast where I've got a guest on who is a home inspector that really dives into the different kinds of inspections and all that kind of stuff. So if you'd like, go back and have a look at that one. With Peter Weeks, who is either currently or was the president of the Canadian CAPI, the Canadian Association for Home Inspectors. So Home Inspection Professionals, I think is what it's called, or something along those lines. So go back and watch that if you'd like to see more instances about home inspections. And next time you can hopefully when you're watching next time, Kyle will be fully animated.
Sorry guys.
That's okay. It's a good pose, man. You're very stoic. Anyways, if you guys like what you're hearing, feel free to hit that like button, share this with somebody who you think might find this info valuable, and you can also book an appointment with us in the Calendly links below. And if you're listening on podcast, thanks so much. And if not, now Kyle's just out completely. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. And until next time, keep it real, collective.